Merry Christmas, everybody. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got gas, a Thursday edition. How are you doing right before Christmas? All right, let's get the camera in place, and let's start talking muscle cars and other great machines. Hey, good morning, everybody, and good afternoon or good evening, whatever time you're watching this. But let's talk about some cars that, well, may not have been looked at real closely. Although 7 million GM A-bodies were built in the 70s. Not many people remember them, and even fewer of them are still around. Now, GM produced the mid-size GM vehicles starting in 1964. In that year, Pontiac lost their compact, Buick lost their compact, and Oldsmobile lost their compact cars. Chevrolet persevered with the Corvair, the Chevy 2, and then gained the Chevelle. But the other three divisions, their compacts became mid-size cars. And the mid-size cars took off like a rocket. A lot of people loved those cars. The muscle car phase started coming in. Performance started to become the main reason people loved those mid-size cars. And that aura of power and mid-size horsepower and just styling just catapulted the mid-size cars into the fray. The Olds 442, the SS Chevelle, the Pontiac GTO, and Buick had the Skylark GS. Oldsmobile set the stage with the 442, 4-speed, 4-barrel, dual exhaust. The GTO, well, it shut down all the other GM divisions, with the GTO running 389 cubic inches, the largest engine in the mid-size class in 1964. By 1965, the other divisions started to catch up. Chevrolet lagged behind. There was a 400 cubic inch Oldsmobile that replaced the 442's 330. Buick got their 400 cubic inch engine, and by the end of 1965, Chevrolet put the 396 in the Chevelle. But the muscle car era of the mid-size cars did not end in the early 1970s like some may want you to believe. Good morning, Don, David Hoover. How are you guys doing this morning? Because General Motors A-body cars, or the Colonnade as they call them in-house, because of the three pillars, the windshield, the mid-pillar, and the rear, those were very successful cars. 7 million of those were produced, and they are very stylish and comfortable cars. Now, the reason for the third pillar was safety. There were rollover standards back in that day, and in 1974, GM decided to, well, they had to meet the standards. So they came up with what they called a Colonnade body. Even the four-door sedans had a mid-post. There were no longer hardtops, as we know them, with the back window and the side front window being matched together. There was a, well, body piece right between them. But a lot of people think that, well, 1972, 73 was the end of the muscle car era. Now, when we look at that, and everyone quotes the horsepower was not the issue. If you look at the time, that was the year the horsepower changed from a brake horsepower rating to a net horsepower rating. Now, I don't mean a net as in Funicello. I mean net horsepower. The way they rated the horsepower, with accessories or without, hooked up, without hooked up, that was the difference. Brake horsepower was approximately 30% higher than the net horsepower. Was there less horsepower in the engine? Technically, yes, but it wasn't because of the rating. It was because of reduced compression ratios, because of emission standards that started to come in and come to play with how the engines were set up. But were they small engines? No. You still got a 454, rated at 290 horsepower rather than the 300 plus that they were rated at earlier on, but it was still a torquey and was still a 454 in the Chevy Malibu line. Oldsmobile still kept their 455, as did Buick, and the power was still there. The torque was still there. Now they went to smaller engines because of, well, they had to meet emissions. So a lot of the performance image cars disappeared by name, but they did come back. Now, the Malibu never really lost its performance aura, and they came out with a whole bunch of different body styles, and frankly, I really like these cars, and would love to have one someday if I grow up. Hey, what can I say? All right, so let's take a look at some of these cars and talk about them. In 1975, one of the more popular cars on the NASCAR circuit was the Chevrolet Malibu series, and it was the Laguna package with the sloped nose. The semi-fastback design of the Colonnade made it a little bit more slippery. The Chevrolet, being the more popular of the brands, was the one that most of the racers went with. And they even idolized it in the movie Cannonball Run by using a stock car version or a look-alike as one of the star vehicles. But the Colonnade cars were good looking. I still think so. Pontiac had their version, and like I said, over 7 million of the Colonnade styles were built from 1973 to 1977. Of course, you really can't find that many of them. They just didn't hang around. But Chevrolet was the most popular of those. Buick still had their version of it, and the Century Special was a pretty stylish vehicle for the time. But again, you got to remember who the demographics were for those vehicles. And the Buick demographics were considerably older than the demographics of the Pontiac, the Oldsmobile, and the Chevrolet, specifically the Chevrolet being the youngest of the group. So you look at these cars, and they didn't hang around very long. They were used up. They were trashed. They were driven till they died, and people really didn't want to fix them because there was so much more exciting vehicles coming out. And these were big cars by anyone's standard. Although they were considered mid-size cars, they were about as big as what a full-size car was just a few years before. Good morning, Willie. Hi, Danny. How you guys doing this morning? All right, so think about some of these. 1974, a banner year for Oldsmobile. Oldsmobile, the 442 Hearst Edition. Gold stripes, rally wheels, a little bit more performance in the engine. It was cool. Hard to find. But they had an M-Code 350 in the 442, not the big motor. But that 350 was still torquey. And again, it's not the Chevrolet 350. This was the Olds Pontiac Buick 350. More torquey, bigger physical size. As a matter of fact, it looked like a 400 and a 455 at the time. But it was still a powerhouse for the times. And the Olds 442 Hearst Edition, try and find one of those babies. They are cool. They're good looking. Their gold and white coloring really makes them stand out. The Pontiac Le Mans, again, part of the mid-size line, got bigger, just like the Chevelle and the Olds and the Buick. And it was stylish. It was stately looking, especially in the dark colors. But was it a performance car? The Le Mans never really was a performance car. When it was a compact, you had a choice of a 4-cylinder or a 326 V8. When it became a mid-size, the GTO came in. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But the Le Mans still got the small V8s and the 6 cylinders. Although the first Le Mans, if you think about it, 4-cylinder or 326, with the very unusual transaxle in the back for the time. Pontiac was ahead of their time putting the transaxle in the back. A lot of cars have gone to that now, including the current Corvettes. Hi, Butch Hill. How are you doing? Merrick, good morning to you. So in 1974, Pontiac Le Mans was a very good vehicle. It's a good-looking vehicle. And the 74 Le Mans was even featured in Popular Hot Rod magazine because of its unique styling. Now, of that Colonnade body style, in the Pontiac line, my favorite, the Grand Ams, or the GTO. They were cool. They had a rubber nose, long, slopey nose, pointed in the front. This was kind of their version of the Chevrolet Laguna that was the based on the Malibu line. It had sharper lines in the back. The rear fenders came to a point. The nose in the front showed you the Pontiac split grills. And it was a good-looking car. And you could have it with 455 cubic inches worth of Pontiac power. Now, again, the net ratings brought the horsepower down as far as what was published, and the lower compression lowered some of that horsepower. But, man, the torque was still there, the power was still there, and the gas-guzzling nature was there as well. In 1976, the slope-nose Laguna came out from Chevrolet. The first Lagunas had a flush nose, and it was okay, but it pushed the wind real hard. By 1976, with the NASCAR influence, they went to the slope nose on them, and they were cool. I had a buddy that had one when I lived back in Texas, and his was totally decked out. 454 cubic inches worth of Chevrolet power, and swivel bucket front seats. Yeah, you hit a little lever, that seat swiveled out so you could get out of the car nice and easy. It was a cool-looking thing. Hi, Luis Valdez and my cousin Bruce from New Jersey. How you doing there, guys? So the Laguna was a very stylish car, and I really liked the Laguna. If I were going to buy a mid-size car, if I needed a car that large, the Laguna would be high on my list. And one of the good things about these mid-size Chevrolets and Pontiacs and Buicks of the time, if you can find one, as I said, they're very rare at this point, they are still not that pricey, and you can get into them very reasonably. All the Chevrolet V8 engines will fit in the Chevrolet version of it, and by the end of the runs, the Chevrolet engines were pretty much the way to go in just about any of them. The SS continued on in the Chevelle line. Take the Laguna, take off the slope nose, and you had a regular Chevelle or an SS, a Malibu. But you couldn't get the big motor in the SS. You had to get the Laguna option. In 1973, Buick Century Stage 1, they called it a Sun Coupe. It had a sunroof. And the Buick, a little bit more stodgy in its styling, more upright and, well, conservative. And again, the youth did not go to this vehicle. But you could get them with a 4-speed and a 455 Stage 1 motor. So if you knew what boxes to check, and you didn't mind the stodgy grandpa styling, this was a powerhouse, and you could get it right off the showroom floor. Now, as I said, the Can-Am and the bigger Pontiacs were kind of cool, and in 1977, it became a big graphics package car as well, and they hid the quarter windows in the back with louvers. Very good-looking car. Rear spoiler. Took some of that angular back end and brought it up a little bit. It had the shaker hood. Don't know if it was functional or not, but they did have it. And it had the snowflake-style wheels, much like the Pontiac Trans Am Firebirds. It was a cool vehicle. This one is a very rare and collectible vehicle. There were only about 1,100 of these made, and it was kind of cool. 400 cubic inches could be found in it, or 455. It was all there. But they are cool-looking cars. In 1973, one even became a pace car for a local racetrack, the Wilkes 400, and did pretty good as a pace car, I'm told. So here are the cars to look for in the last of the generation of the midsize: the 74 Chevy Laguna, the 77 Buick Century Special, the Olds 442 Cutlass, 1974, 74 Pontiac Le Mans, 73 Pontiac Grand Am, 76 Chevy Laguna S3. That's the one I'd look for. 74 Malibus, 73 Stage 1 Buick Century, the Sun Coupe, Pontiac Can-Am, and the Pontiac Grand Am. These are the midsize of the late 70s that are really cool vehicles, overlooked by many, but easily found here in Southern California anyway, and a very rewarding car. Comfortable car to drive, plenty of room. I rented one once, and it was all right. Air conditioning worked great, heat worked great, car just cruised down the road. Not the kind of car you're going to use for canyon carving, but if you need a daily driver, it's not a bad choice. I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got gas, the Great American Auto Scene, brought to you by BAU, BUA, Beach Underwriting, Insurance, Service Tech Equipment for all the service equipment you need for the shop you've got. Whether it's a commercial shop or your home shop like mine, you can contact Service Tech Equipment in Simi Valley, California. Talk to Craig Heidenthal and check it out. Valley Head Service. And here's something else to think about coming up in just about a month. It's going to be the Grand National Roadster Show at Pomona Fairgrounds. Now, we're hoping everything goes through, and we're hoping things happen. But at this point, Grand National Roadster Show is going on, and my partner Randy Kergoon and I, your two tired guys, are going to be broadcasting live right from the show floor at the Grand National Roadster Show in Building 4. Check it out. We'll be brought to you by Beach Underwriting. We'll be there, along with the Lucas team and many other people coming into the booth for special interviews, you could say. Come by, say hi, stop by, watch the interviews, listen to them live, and then we'll post them later on social media. I'm Hot Rod Bob. You've got gas. Hope to see you in January at the Grand National Roadster Show. Take care. Have a great day, everybody. And Merry, Merry Christmas for those of you who celebrate that. And if I don't talk to you before, Happy New Year as well. You have a great day. Stay dry here in Southern California. It's raining. Stay inside if you can. Hi, Buster. How you doing today? All right, folks, take care. You have a great day. I'm Hot Rod Bob, and you've got gas.